Good afternoon, class. Welcome to this session of Modern Organization and Management. Hope whatever we discussed in our earlier classes, you were able to understand it. And if not, uh, please do ask so that I would know the topics which I will have to repeat it once again. Please do not hesitate to ask because unless until you tell me whether you have understood or not, I would be unable to decide whether I'll have to repeat things or not. Now, speaking about today's class, I had asked you all to go through what do you mean by management information system. Now, as a syllabus, you already do study this, but now there might be a question as to why once again we'll have to discuss this particular topic under modern organization and management. Now, uh, speaking about management information system, here we speak from the point of view that when in an organization they implement this particular technique, they would be implementing with the aim of making the decisions better. Now, in simple words, as you all know, this particular system is where information is collected. Once after collecting the information which is necessary, the information shall be processed in the way that has been predetermined and it shall be present to the management. Now, all this work shall be done with the main aim of improving the quality of the decisions that are to be taken by the management. Here, the importance and the emphasis shall always be on decision making. Originally, management information system was developed for large scale business organization. But then now if we see, it has being applied in all types of organization. Now, management information system in small organization will always be less elaborated when we compare it with the large organization. But then it will have the same exact potential of making the quality of decisions better in whether it is a small organization or whether it is a larger organization. This goes with the saying that all business, it requires both accurate information, and not only that the information are accurate, they should also be timely information. And that is where management information system tries to provide much needed information. It generates the data, processes and presents the same to the management in the exact appropriate form that is being expected by the management, so that sound or good business decisions can be taken from the side of management. Now, when we speak of this MIS or Management Information System, it will always refer to a technology which is based on computer system. Now, it is such a system which has been designed to provide, selected decision-oriented information needed by management, maybe to plan, control, and also evaluate the activities of an organization. Not only that, it provides information of the past, it provides information of the present, and also projected future information. And all this information, past, present, and future, it shall be providing to the management on relevant events which are both internal and external to the organization. So, if I have to tell what is MIS based on this particular diagram that is being presented in your PPT, we can tell that management information system is a three-step activity. It includes data generation, data processing, and data transmission, or you can even call it as information transmission. So, management information system is a three-step activity which includes data generation, data processing, and data transmission. It can be data transmission or also it can be information transmission. And it is a effective combination of personnel, equipment, and computer system in a very essential way for the proper functioning of management information system. So these must be organized properly so that whatever information is desired is available for the management in making business decisions. So that is what in a nutshell management information system is. So next the question might arise, so what is the need for this particular management information system? Management information, it always offers very vital information to managers so that they can carry out, operational control, management control, and strategic planning in a very successful way. Now, when I speak of this operational control, to so that it ensures there is you know control in the operations of maybe the day to day activities of the business in such a field, MIS, it offers highly accurate and also detailed information, and it provides it either on daily basis or if the need is there, maybe on weekly basis also. Mm, Now, for a production supervisor, it helps maybe to know if the materials are enough, or if the wastage is excessive, or if there are any of the costly expenses, or if the machine time for a job has been enough or not. So, in through these different ways, it would be helping or providing operational control. Now, management information system also provides not only accurate, timely, but also high volume of timely and detailed information which shall be derived from daily operation. Now, speaking of the middle management, this middle level managers they need information on matters which affect especially their units. For example, there might be a sudden decline in the sales, or even there might be increased demand for a particular product line. There might arise large scale problems with suppliers and all such problems. Yes, Devraj, you would like to tell something? Okay. Now, coming back to your discussion, now when we speak of middle management, maybe not the day to day routine, but some major decision which definitely works the day to day routine shall be taken into consider. This management information system offers summarized data on all these matters from within the organization as well as from sources outside to the organization. It provides huge data, definitely, but then providing such vast data in itself will not be of any help. In most of the cases, there are chances that such huge data or vast data may, confuse the decision maker. Therefore, the advantage in management information system is that if it is able to offer data in a comprehensive way so that timely and also informed and sound decisions can be taken. Now this is how it helps the middle level management. Now speaking about the top level management, now for higher authorities, management information system, it provides information especially for making strategic planning and also the management control. Now, you know what is strategic planning. Now, usually the strategic planning or for taking up such decisions, external sources are looked into closely and analyzed in a detailed way. Now, what are these external source? External source include all those which comes under maybe economic environment, maybe changes in technology, competitive changes, or any other thing over which normally the management will not be having control. So this information is difficult to computerize because the data supporting all such information shall be generally beyond the control of the organization. So for ensuring top management control, management information system it usually provides data maybe on overall financial performance of the organization. Um, Maybe information on quarterly sales, profits, inventory management, and as such. Now, one thing we have to remember is irrespective of in which level management information system is used, the basic aim shall remain always with the fact that it provides manager with information they need to carry out their task in a more effectively manner. Now the value of information supplied by MIS depends on the information quality, quantity, timeliness and also relevance to the management action. Now, it always, suggested that the cost of obtaining the information must be balanced against the information's benefits. If the information cost is more than benefit, then there is no use of implementing such a management information system. So now speaking about this design of management information system, or how shall it be designed. Now there is one of the management researcher thinker, Robert G Murdick. He is one such person who has developed one of the model for defining in or designing management of information system. He has studied through a lot number of books and articles regarding, and then he built this management information system design basically on four steps. The first one is problem definition. Now, as the name suggests, here it asks that a task force should be created to design MAS. Now, this particular team, it should make a detailed analysis of the organization's capacities, the strategic goals of the organization, and also even the analysis of all such external factors which are relevant for the organization's working. Now, when this particular task force does this assessment, then definitely they can reach a definition of the information system which is necessary for the organization. So once after they are able to do this, the next step is that they'll have to conceptual design. That is to tell, conceptual is nothing but it shall be on the thinking level and on the paper level. So once after a thorough analysis of all the information system would tell you about the different alternative designs that are necessary for the organization. All such alternatives have to be evaluated by comparing it with the organization's capacity, the organization's necessity, the organization's requirement, and also the organization's objectives. So, when it is compared, this particular evaluation would help in initial selection of the project plan. And once after the initial project plan is selected, then the task can be delegated. Now, information on the task force study communicated to employees, and the plan for training program shall also be started. So once after design is conceptualized, then comes the detailing designing work or detailed design. Here, performance specifications of the what we can call as new management information system can be established. All the components regarding this particular MIS, the programming, maybe some flow charting, or even database can be designed. So, when all these things are done, a model of the system can be created. Once after this model is created, it can be tested. Once after testing, if there are options, if there are necessity, it can be refined. And once again, it can be reviewed. So this can go on until it meets the exact specific level of performance that is being asked by the management. So once after it reaches the particular level, it can be finally implemented. So the formal, needs of the new management information system can be decided at this particular point. Maybe the logistics of space allocation, the addition in the equipments that are necessary, and even the form design may be worked out and also acted upon. And it is in this particular point the training program should be started, and even designing and testing of software should be completed, and even the organization's database shall be entered into the system. So once after a series of all the final checks, the management information system shall be ready for implementation. But here some things are to be duly noted. The fact that creation of a management information system is always a long term task, and it always requires the skills of variety of specialists. In fact, the designing and implementation of management information system, it requires a major effort by managers and also the analysts over period of maybe 2 or 3 years. So, if the implementation is such a long process, then what are the things that are to be looked on when management information system is being implemented in the organization? So, there are some of the things that are to be kept in mind. The first thing is there should be user participation. This becomes very much necessary. That is to tell, MIS should always try to receive inputs from the people who are actually using it. And there should always be a cooperation between the managers or the operating managers and the people who are designing the system, or whom we call as system designers. Because only then can a good management information system be implemented in the organization, because users know what information they need, when such informations are necessary, and how shall all this information be used for managerial action and also decision making. Now, unless operating managers have a very good hold in the design of the management information system, or a good say in the management information system, there are chances that the information system might be unsuccessful to provide the necessary information, because there are chances that it may simultaneously overload the management with only useless information, if at all it is not being designed properly. So the next one that the management might see is regarding the cost benefit analysis. Now this is a very simple task, or this is something which can be understood easily. Now, one thing, management information system shall be affected or in effect for a long time period. So, to keep it on track and within the specified amount or budget, the designers or design analysts, they must carefully analyze the cost and the benefits involved in developing and also implementing the system. Now, next comes the relevant information. Now, this is to tell, management information system must guarantee information, enough information for management to take sound decision. That is to tell, there is no any use loading managers with unnecessary or unwanted details. Now, this can be very well understood with the example. Now, what is this unnecessary and unwanted details is? Now, if at all a manager needs information, now instead of supplying sales department with voluminous monthly printouts of sales results, the management information department can supply information on all salespeople who exceed 10% plus or minus the sales quota. That is to tell, management information collects the information, yes, but then it should be able to filter out the exact information which would be helpful for the organization. Until it can do so, there is no use implementing, no matter how exceptional our information system is. The next one is speaks about presenting the system before installation, or it simply speaks about four different ways how management information system can be implemented in an organization. The first one is what we call as crash or direct installation. Crash, CRASH, crash or direct installation system. What happens here is the new management information system that is being decided upon, it will entirely replace the older one. Now, since the management system is installed overnight, it always requires huge pre-tests in the organization, or it is definitely going to prove unsuccessful. The second one is what is called as parallel installation. Now, as it is being termed in its name itself, here the new system is implemented and operated along or side by side with the earlier one or the old one. Now, after comparing the outputs from these systems, the management can make adjustments and the old systems may be allowed to die. However, this shall always be a costly proposition. If at all it comes to that, the organization has to live with both the system. When you do parallel system, it has also to be seen that up until a certain point, yes, both can exist. But the benefits from the earlier system should be taken, if at all necessary, implemented in the new one, and the old one should be discarded. Now, the third one here shall be pilot installation. Here, the MIS is used by a small part of the organization. Problems can then be discovered before total installation. Now, what happens in pilot installation is that here a small part, you might have heard this particular word pilot survey when it comes for marketing. In the same way, the pilot installation. Here, a small part of the organization shall be used, or MIS shall be used in a small part of the organization. So when you do it in the small part, if at all there exists any problem, all such problems can be discovered before this particular system can be implemented in the entire organization. Then comes the fourth type, that is called as phased installation. Here the organization, it usually goes with implementing management information system in a phased manner. So it should allow for operational testing and also debugging of any of the problems before moving on the next segment. So these alternatives may be examined thoroughly before a final decision is taken from the side of the management as to how to implement MIS in their organization. But then always pre-testing must be ensured so that omissions or bugs that come up during the test can be rectified if any. And the last guideline for making the design effective is the training and documentation of the operators. The training and written instructions to operating people should be provided without any kind of failure so that they would be able to understand the information needs of managers at various levels clearly. Those who operate, they must know what they are doing and also for whom they are doing it and what is the purpose of doing it. And most importantly, managers they need to understand how the management information system operates so they can control it rather than letting the system control them. So now, there are advantages, yes, but then there are disadvantages of management information system also. Now, this particular system is remarked so that you know the remark goes like this. I quote, no tool has ever aroused so much hope at its creation as management information system, and no tool has proved so disappointing in its use. It can only happen because the design of management information system is not being a good one. Now, there is one particular magazine called as Business Week. It commented that, MIS as, for all the talk about the information age, most computers are still just workhorses churning out payrolls, reports, numerical analysis. So these are some of the disappointments of the management information system that can be seen. So what made people give such comments? The thing is that there are quite some problems with MIS. The first one is that development of an integrated report which can help decision making is never an easy task. As we discussed earlier, it is having overload of information. So, you know, taking such informations which are relevant for the management decision becomes a difficult task. Management makes decision or such decisions which includes several areas in an organization. It includes production, it includes quality control, it includes accounting, purchasing, sales, and all such things. So, unless the reports or MIS takes into account the cost, performance consideration of various different specialties, they are of manager value in helping managers or to evaluate the trade-off typically involved in the top level decisions. It is not going to be of any helpful for the organization. And the second problem is that usually what happens if with the MIS is it is designed by computer specialists. Now, operating managers usually will have to take a back seat in this. So, thinking that specialists know more about the system design, but then what has to be designed will always have to be discussed. In the absence of inputs from the one who uses it, current information system developed by those specialists might not be useful, it might not be meaningful either. And not but last but not least, people may, or the people who are working in the organization, they may resist the design and implementation of management information system base with the basic, you know thinking that their position in the organization would be threatened. Now, other sources of anxiety for managers might be the fact that this computerized information system might allow for more centralized decision making, which makes it easier for top level managers to have increased control over operating managers. Also, there is the possibility that a computer based management information system will eliminate or substantially, you know, alter some first line and middle line management jobs. Now, not only these three problems that has been mentioned, there are many other problems. Like if management information system, it disrupts departmental boundaries, if it disrupts the informational communication system, and if the system is installed without the participation of people at various level, there can be huge problems. So managers, they need to look into these problem areas more closely before designing and implementing the management information system in the organization. So proper communication, user participation, user orientation, and other steps which are aimed at clearing the fog surrounding the implementation of MIS should always go a long way in translating the rhetoric into concrete action. So this is with regard to management information system. You already have studied this, but then how it is helpful for decision making is in brief what we have discussed in our today's class. Now, there is one more topic which is called as creativity. Now, this work is for you. This is a do it yourself or DIY for all of you in the class. You need not submit anything with regard to this, but you should have a knowledge of what it is. Now, you will have to understand what is creativity. What do you mean by it? And how is that it is an important part of decision making. Why creativity becomes important in decision making, or how creativity is important in today's business world. Now we will have to try to answer all such questions. And also you might answer the question that what happens if there is too much creativity? Yes. So this is DIY for you all. Okay. Now we have already seen type of decision once, but when if at all you go through different textbooks or different study materials, you might get different other materials, which might lead to a confusion for you all. So I thought there are some things which could be said. Now we have already seen this before, but these are some other different ways how decisions can be divided. And on the basis of the decision factors, it can be designed as programmed decision and non programmed decision. Now, one of the management thinker called as Herbert Simon was the person who grouped the organization decision on the basis of decision factor. So there are two, that is programmed and non-programmed. Now programmed decisions, as the name suggests, it shall be a routine, a repetitive, and it shall be made within the boundaries of organizational policies and rules. And all such policies and rules would have been made well in advance to solve recurring problems in the organization. Now, such decisions are easy to make as these relate to the problems which are solved by considering the internal organization factors. And also, such decisions are made by employees at lower levels in the organization where the environment affecting the decision making is static and also the environment is well structured. Now, speaking of non-programmed decision, it is quite opposite in the way it works compared to program. Now, non-programmed decisions are relevant for solving all the unique and unusual problems in which various alternatives cannot be decided in advance. There shall be no any well structured environment and the outcomes of various alternatives, it cannot be arranged well in advance how we can do for programmed decision making. Now usually for evaluating the outcomes of all these alternatives of non-programmed decision, the managers have to consider various factors, now many of which lie outside the organization. So, what we can tell is a common feature of non-programmed decision is that they are always novel and non-recurring, and therefore ready-made solutions are not available. And since these decisions are of high importance, as they are long-term consequences, they shall always be made by managers at higher level in the organization. So that is how Herbert Simon, on the basis of decision factor, divided the organization decisions as two different, programmed and non-programmed. And there is one more, on the basis of delegation of authority, the decision making in the organization can be divided into and strategic and tactical decision. So if you consider delegation of authority, so what can you make out? Strategic and tactical. Anyhow, you know strategic, what is strategic decision, what are tactical decision, and if you have to stay in terms of delegation of authority, what does this mean? Now, strategic are the ones based on the strategy in which major action plan in the organization happens, and usually it cannot be delegated. Whereas speaking about tactical decision, it can also be called as operational decision, which is derived from the strategic decision, and therefore it shall always relate to day-to-day working of the organization and is made in the context of well set policies and procedures. Now, if I have to say about strategic decision, definitely the decision shall be major one, which might affect the whole or major part of the organization. It shall contribute directly to the achievement of organizational objectives. Might involve major departments, and the strategy, it decision is normally a non-programmed decision which shall be made under the condition of partial ignorance, and the alternatives involved and the outcomes of these alternatives cannot be known well in advance. Now, this happens because strategic decisions are to be taken in the context of environmental factors which are quite dynamic and also uncertain in nature. Now, speaking about tactical decision, it shall relate to day-to-day operation of the organization, and these are such decisions which has to be taken very frequently. The decision is mostly repetitive for things like as maybe purchase of raw materials or delegating any of the responsibility or duty to employees. Now all such decisions shall be programmed one. Now what happens here is when the situation arises for decision making, the decision maker simply puts the prescribed actions and decides the things. Now, the outcome of tactical decisions shall be of short term nature and usually affects a narrow part of the organization. Now, the authority for making tactical decisions definitely can be delegated to lower level management. So, this is one more way how the organization decisions can be divided. Now, next comes the question after having so many discussion over different topics regarding the effective decision. So, you already know what is efficient, what is effective. So, what makes a decision effective? Now, we spoke about good decision, sound decision, timely decision. So, how do you think all these decisions can be effective one? Now, one thing we have to remember about the decision making process is that it goes through the various stages, and the basic objective of all these stages are to solve problem through the decision. Now, the solution of the problem usually depends upon how effectively the decision is made and how effectively can these decisions be implemented in the organization. So, an effective decision is one which is action oriented, it should be goal directed and provides efficiency in implementation. So these three steps can make a decision effective. It should be action oriented, it should be goal oriented, and it should make efficient implementation. Yes, Anisha, you want to speak anything?
No,
Okay, so can you mute yourself? Yes. Now, speaking about the first one, action oriented. Now, decisions should always be action oriented. That means it should provide some action in the organization which are directed towards relevant and controllable aspects in the environment. Now, decisions are totally pragmatic in nature and their values shall always depend on the success of the actions that follows. Now, these decisions may be treated as intervening variables which may ultimately lead to the end result variables. So, from this point of view, decisions should ultimately find their utility in implementation. So, therefore, the decisions to be effective must specify the various actions which are to be taken to achieve the objective necessitating the decision making. The next one is it has to be goal directed. Now, the first thing we discussed regarding our organization is that it should always have a goal. So, organizations are always directed units, and that is where it calls that any organizational process, even including the decision making, should always be goal oriented so that it enables the organization to reach all its objectives in a timely way and effective way. And naturally, the value of a decision and the associated action is related with the dispatch with which the goal can be achieved. Now, while the value of a decision is depend on the attainment of a given goal or a set of goals, now such attainment is function of both the accuracy that can be there in the decision and also how well can it be implemented in the organization. Now, when we have to evaluate a decision, there should be a distinction made between the effects of the goal attainment which can be brought about by better decision and all those attainments which can be brought out of execution. The next one is efficiency in implementation. Now, this says that an effective decision should provide the way in which it can be implemented in the organization. So, decision making should take into account all those possible factors, not only in terms of the external environment, but also with regard to all the internal context of the organization. Now, what we have to remember when we speak of efficient decision is that, you know, quite often the results shall be obtained only by proper implementation of proper decision. Therefore, a brilliant decision may fail if it is not suitable for implementation by the organization. So, this is how a decision can be made effective. So, even for this effective decision, we can have some of the guidelines. Now, there are some of the guidelines which have been provided which can make the decision still more better. Now, what has been mentioned here is some of the areas which the manager has to look through so that their decisions can be effective. The first one is what we can call as categorical interpretation. Now, what is this categorical interpretation? Now, it speaks that logical decisions can be made by the decision maker if the real problem is interpreted and identified with in-depth study and observation. Now, usually when it comes to business organization, what happens is that managers, they do not analyze the problem carefully, and they usually only take the symptoms as the problems. And also, they have the tendency to assume or perceive certain things without adequate basis and analysis. So, it might create a problem. So it is often suggested that a problem is half solved if it is not identified properly. Then we have something called as application of limiting factors. So it tells that managers, they can work better if they apply the limiting factor principle. So what is this? Now, it tells this particular limiting factor, it tells that in choosing from among alternatives, the more a manager recognizes and solves for those factors which are limiting and critical to the attainment of the desired objective, the more clearly and accurately he can select the most desirable alternative. Now, in order to identify the limiting factors, the manager should take a complete analysis of external environment and strengths and weaknesses of the organization. The analysis will bring about what the organization can do and cannot do. Therefore, the managers can refrain from taking such a decision which cannot be implemented by the organization. But however, the concept of limiting factor is never static in nature. And so, the limiting factor might differ from one decision situation to another. For the same decision, it might change over a period of time. Then, regarding the adequate information. Now, when we speak about decision making, information can be termed as lifeblood of organization because all the decisions are made on the basis of the information that is available. And it can also be said that the higher the quantity of the reliable information that the organization has, higher can be the validity of decision. And therefore every aspect of decision should be backed by sound and also adequate proofs. Now if the facts which are underlying a problem are collected and care is taken to analyze the situation as well as the problem with regard to collected information, the basic speed work in the decision making is complete. But then there is also a limit for how much information can be collected. And this happens because of the time and cost factors. Therefore, it becomes a work on the part of the manager that they should decide the extent to which they will go for more information. And usually what managers does that they rely much on their experience and common sense, and because of this there are chances that they might commit blunders. Now, in the absence of adequate information, it is better to defer a manager major decision rather than making wrong decision, because the cost of deferring decision will be much more lesser than making a wrong decision. Deferring is nothing but okay, we'll take the decision, but maybe we might not be able to take it right now. Might be there would be some delay in it, but then yes, it is going to be proving costly, but then it won't be costly as compared to an entirely wrong decision that has been taken. The next one is, it is suggested that others' views are considered. That is to tell, it is desirable that all alternatives are considered before arriving at a decision. Often, what happens is that decisions can be affected by preferences and values. Moreover, interpretation of many qualitative facts in an alternative is subject to always personal judgment. Therefore, if various views on the same point are taken into consideration and given adequate weight, they will contribute to the quality of decision. Sometimes many views may seem to be impractical, but they may turn to be highly practical if time relevance is not ignored. The basic idea of taking others' view is not that the manager will act accordingly, but he must take into account the other alternatives which are suggested by other people. That is to tell, there is a very old saying which goes like, listen to everybody but do according to your judgment. But that does not simply means that, oh, just for the sake of listening, you have to listen. But listen what they have to say, analyze if there is anything at all in their saying which can make your judgment better. If so, implement all those things and make your judgment better than how it could have been. Next one is timeliness. Now, this is very much important. That is to tell, a decision to be effective must be made at a proper time. Now, a delay in decision making may result into loss of opportunities in this fast changing environment. Now, in fact, one of the reasons for slow growth of organization is that they have not been able to make the fast decision, particularly the strategic decisions. The quick decision makers, they almost always have time to recover from their mistake, as some mistakes are inevitable. This can be an invaluable advantage. So the observance of all these guidelines should not be taken to mean that chance element in decision making can be avoided totally. Now, the fact is otherwise. Since the decision's impact is for future, the chance factor cannot be eliminated altogether. Now, it can be reduced considerably if at all we try to follow the guidelines. So, these are some ways how effective decisions can be made. Oh. Now, there is one more topic in your syllabus which speaks of common biases and errors in decision making. Now, this particular thing has to be easier for you all since you have studied so much regarding, decision making, the process, you have understood it, the different ways how it can be made effective. Now, you can also come up with some of the, you know, biases or errors. Now, this had to be your work, but then, maybe things would be helpful. That's why I'm discussing this particular topic. So please listen to this one with a little bit of attention, because whatever has been mentioned here is not as easy as it appears. It is not just that you write the solid points and you would be able to explain it. This particular topic, that is common biases and errors, that what I have picked up is little bit difficult in understanding. Just by looking at the side points, you will be unable to write. So, you understanding this or you knowing this becomes important. So, please do pay a little bit of attention as we discuss. Now, having said that, one thing we can notice that these decision makers, it could be you or me, now we always engage in bounded rationality. Now, what is bounded rationality? We had seen in detail. But they also allow systematic biases and errors to come in between their judgment or decision making. Now, why do they do is that so that they can, minimize the effort that has to be put by their side, and also to avoid difficulty, they trade off. Now, people tend to rely too much on the experience, their perception, their gut feelings, their impulses, and convenient rule of thumb. Now, in many instances, these shortcuts are helpful, but they can lead to severe distortions of rationality also sometimes. So now what we can do is we try to understand each by giving a scenario. Now the first one is overconfidence bias. So what is this overconfidence bias? Now it is always been spoken that what happens when a person tries to make a decision based on overconfidence. It is said that there can be no any problem in judgment and decision making which is more prevalent and more potentially catastrophic than overconfidence. It simply means that overconfidence shall always lead to catastrophe. Now, when the information is being given with factual questions and asked to judge, the probability that the answers would be correct, we usually tend to be more optimistic when people say they are 65 to 70% confident that they are right, that they are actually correct only about 50% of the time. Usually, when they say that they are 100% sure, they tend to be 70 to 85% correct. So, yeah, this usually happens in with our examination also. When we tell we have written all the question, it simply means yes, our average of 70 marks maybe I can get. When I tell it was, okay, I have written for 60 marks, maybe you would be able to get 50 marks or 45. Now, there is also one of the interesting example. Now, what happened in a random sample national poll in the United States? 95% of the people who have been interviewed of US adults said that they expect to go to heaven. But in another random sample national poll, only 86% thought Mother Teresa was in heaven. So talk about this is nothing but an overconfidence bias. Now, when 90% of them think that they have to go to heaven, 90% of them they should have actually thought that the one who has already been dead is also there in heaven. But then that is the difference where they found out how much overconfident people can actually be. Now, individuals whose intelligence or intellectual abilities and the interpersonal abilities are weakest are the people who overestimate their performance and their ability. So, now why are we speaking all about this when we have to speak about business organization? Now it simply means that as a manager, you never have to be such a person who overestimates their performance or who overestimates their ability. So, as a manager and employee become more knowledgeable about an issue, they become less likely to display overconfidence. Now, there is also a negative relationship between entrepreneurs' optimism and the performance of their new venture. That is to tell, the more optimistic, the less successful. Because when you are more optimistic, you oversee the problems. You never give attention to the potential problems that might arise. You'll be like, okay, I have done this, I shall be successful, this definitely is going to happen. But then things usually does not work in that way. So the more you're like, yes, I might be faced with a problem. I'll have to be ready to face with the problem. That is when being a manager, that is when being in a business organization, you would make yourself ready to take a risk, to face the problems, or even probability to think, what can I do if I be faced with such problems? Now, the tendency for some entrepreneurs to be too confident about their ideas might keep them from planning how to avoid the problems that arise. So, though overconfidence is most likely to surface when organization members are working outside their area of expertise, that does not mean so called experts are, immune. Now, this is all regarding overconfidence bias. In simple words, if I have to put is that never be too much, or never have too much of confidence than necessary, either on your experience, I mean past experience, or on your gut feeling. Yes, when you rely on data, your decisions can be better than the times when you rely on your gut feeling. But then we should also remember that when it comes to business, we usually tend to work on the partial ignorance of the entire knowledge. Okay, the next one is anchoring bias. What might be this anchoring bias? Now, anchoring bias is one such tendency where the decisions shall be fixed only on the initial information and the decision maker failed to adjust adequately for the subsequent information. Now, it usually occurs because our mind appears to give a disproportionate amount of emphasis to the first information it receives. Now, anchors are widely used by people in professions in which persuasion skills are important, maybe such as advertising, management, politics, real estate, and law. Now, I'll repeat it once again. Anchoring bias is nothing but a tendency to fixate on initial information from which one or the decision maker fails to adequately adjust for subsequent information. Now, what is this anchoring? We shall see a example. It might be helpful. Now, take into consideration or assume two pilots. This is very, you know, idealistic situation. So just assume two pilots, name them, maybe one as Devish and one as Harish. Now they have been laid off their current jobs, and after an extensive search, their best offers are from, maybe, yes, we shall take the one, Indian Airlines, and each would earn the average pay of Indian Airlines pilots. That is might be rupees, 3 point some lakh. We shall take a round figure, maybe, or we shall take it as to be, some random number, 3.4 lakh per month. Now, Devish, he was a pilot for Paramount, a regional airline, where the average monthly salary was rupees 1.5 lakh. Now, Harish was a pilot for Jindal, where the average monthly salary was rupees 2.5 lakh plus some of the perks. Now, tell me which pilot is most likely to accept or be happiest with Indian Airlines offer. Okay. I shall repeat the question. Imagine two pilots, Devesh and Harish. Now they have been removed from their jobs, and after a huge search, they have got best offer from Indian Airlines. Now they would be paid the average salary of the pilot in that particular company, which is to be rupees 3.4 lakh. Now this is the information. Now the information is that they wish for which company he used to work, he used to get a monthly salary of 1.5 lakh. And Harish used to get 2.5 lakh, including some of the perks. Now, the question is, according to you, whom do you think is most likely to accept or be happiest with the offer that has been made from Indian Airlines? Now, some of your answers might be Devish because he is anchored by the lower salary. But anytime a negotiation takes place, so does anchoring takes place. As soon as someone sets a number, it compromises one's ability to ignore that particular number. Now, when a prospective employer asks how much you made in your prior job, your answer typically anchors the employer's offer. Remember this when you negotiate your salary, but set the anchor only as high as you realistically can. Now, finally, the more precise your anchor, the smaller the adjustment. Now, some research suggests people think of adjustment after an anchor is set as rounding of a number. That is, if you suggest an initial target salary of rupees 5 lakh per year, your boss will consider rupees 4.5 lakh to 5.5 lakh a reasonable range for negotiation. But if you mention rupees 5.65 lakh, your boss is more likely to consider 5.5 lakh to 5.7 lakh the range of likely values for negotiation. So that is what is called as anchoring bias. The next one is confirmation bias. Now, the rational decision making process, it usually assumes that we objectively gather information, but not on the basis of subjective. But what we don't is that we selectively gather it. Now, the confirmation bias, it represents a specific case of selective perception. That is, we seek out information that reaffirms our past choices and we discount information that contradicts them. We also tend to accept at face value information that confirms our preconceived views while we are critical and skeptical of information that challenges these views. Therefore, the information we gather is typically biased towards supporting views we already have. We even tend to seek out sources most likely to tell us what we want to hear, and we give too much weight to supporting information and too little to contradictory ones. Now, this is what happens in business organization or when an individual has to take decision. That is, you already would have percepted if this is the case, if I do so, this might be the result. And when you have all these preconceived notions, preconceived ideas and thoughts, we usually tend is that even though we have information regarding this is the actual thing, this is what it will happen, this is how it is going to affect our result. Now, what confirmation bias is, if the results or if the things are according to our preconceived notion, we usually tend to more likely accept them in a better way. But if at all those results, all those information are somewhat contradictory or against what we perceive, we are not even going to check if it is going to make our decisions better or if it is going to prove advantageous. All that we do is we would have a preconceived notion and we would simply not like to accept such notions which are against our preconceived thoughts. There are chances that we might not even want to hear all such because we give too much weight to only such information which supports our notion of thinking, and we tend to give little weight to all those information which tend to contradict our notion of thinking. So, for this particular session, we shall wind it up here.